Hello everyone, I'm Cinnamon McCann and today I'm going to talk about how to self-publish. So we have a lot to go over today in this webinar, so hopefully you'll get a lot of information. So I do request that you kind of put your distractions away and get a pen and paper because we have a lot to get into. So let's get started. All right, so first, let's talk about what we will cover. In this webinar, we'll talk about how writing will change your life. We'll talk about what you need to sell a ton of books, an author's accessories to wealth, and of course our Q&A section. Now, for those of you who don't know me, again, I'm Cinnamon McCann, and I've been an entrepreneur all my life. And when the recession came, I was an entrepreneur that was highly affected by the troubled economy. I was highly invested in real estate. I owned several properties in addition to a couple of apartment buildings, and everything just kind of went haywire, and I lost everything. So it was actually during kind of recovering and going through depression and a whole host of other issues that made me feel like I wanted to write this book. I couldn't do anything else. So I was like, well, I'll write. And I always toyed with the idea of writing a book. I know some of you, on this webinar can identify with that. I talked about writing a book for years, but just never sat down and did it. And at that time, I had more time on my hand than I was used to, so I pulled out my trusty journal and I started writing. So I had an idea for a book, and that was actually the second book that I published. I published a first book. I didn't know how to self-publish because I knew I wanted to self-publish because I wanted to continue to own my intellectual property rights. That was important to me. So I knew I wanted to self-publish, but I had no idea how to do it. So the first book I wrote was a guide as to how to self-publish. So that's basically my story and how I started that. I'm the author of You Made It Mom Entrepreneur Edition, which was the second book that I told you that was inspired literally out of my depression. And then the first book I wrote was Self-Publishing in Stilettos. And it was after writing these books that it really changed my life. So I want to kind of talk about how to self-publish and how writing can change your life. So, how writing will change your life. So let's talk about this. And this is kind of what happened for me, and I'll go later on in the webinar and show you how it can happen for you. But of course, the most obvious thing that people know about is that writing a book can create additional income for yourself. And of course, everyone knows you get book sales and that type of thing. But more importantly, it's a passive form of income. So book royalties are considered passive income, unlike the income when you go to your job, which is earned income. Passive income is taxed at a lesser rate than earned income. So, I won't get all into the financials and bore you with that. All right. So you can create additional income for yourself. But more importantly, you can write from anywhere in the world. And this is a big deal, guys. When I was in real estate, I had to kind of be there. I had to check on contractors. I had to go to closings. I had to do a variety of things. And with writing, I can literally be anywhere. I can go have my laptop. I can be in another country. I can be in a certain state. And this has allowed me to go visit friends I hadn't seen in decades. It allowed me to visit places that I always said I wanted to go and still be able to work. And for those of you who hate the 9-to-5 and can't stand being in a cubicle, or writing is a great profession, honestly, because so many blogs, so much information out there. People are using the internet to get this information, and they're paying writers to give this to them, in addition to any book sales that you create from self-publishing. So just want to let you know, if you're the type of person who wants to kind of be all over and not confined to an office or a desk space, then writing is awesome and will totally change your life. Okay, now it will allow you to meet important people. So here's a picture of me when I actually was interviewed for my first book on Fox News. So no one really cared about having me on the news before, but when I wrote this book and now I was considered an expert in this field, now I was able to meet important people and go on certain media outlets that I wouldn't have the ability to do if it was just regular old me as my business. I had been a business owner for 10 years at the time, and I hadn't had any news coverage. So writing the book definitely opened up doors to allow me to meet important people. Now, it can create a legacy for you and your family. And what do I mean by that? And I don't want to sound morbid, but it's the truth. So long after you're gone from this earth, your book and your words are still here forever, okay? And so whatever input or or excitement or things that distant lands you took your reader to, you will continue to do that as long as your books or as long as your content is out there. And more importantly, for your family, if you're not here anymore, your family is now have access to the royalties of your book. So writing is a big deal. If you're trying to figure out this way as to how you can create this legacy and put your stamp on the world, then writing is an awesome way to do that. All right, there is no expensive equipment to buy with writing. When I started off and I lost everything, I literally had pen and a journal. That was it, okay? So, and that's what I wrote my thoughts in. That's what I wrote my notes in, and that is how I started. If you want to do the whole laptop thing, of course, that's easy too. Laptops are very inexpensive now. A lot of people are even doing stuff on their phone. So you don't have to, if you're an entrepreneur, you know that there's a lot of startup costs initially with being an entrepreneur. And writing is that thing that it doesn't cost that much. It's very, very nominal. If you don't have access to a laptop or, smartphone or thing like that, you can always go to your local library, which is free, and type your information that way. So you don't have any expensive equipment to buy. So there's no excuse as to why you don't explore it. Also, some people may think, oh, I'm not really a good writer. And, when I started off, I wouldn't have called myself that as well. All I knew that I was capable of doing was telling people how to do something and do it in a fun and informative way. So I felt confident enough doing kind of a reference how-to guide. I wouldn't feel confident doing like a nonfiction because I just don't feel like I fall in that type of brain space. But that works for me. So when you have a writing skill, it's something that can basically be improved by more reading, by attending classes. It's not something that's so hard to improve. And once you continue to do it, it's like that natural progression. You'll start to, your sentences will start to flow more. You'll start to be able to paint more of a picture. That literally comes by the more writing that you do. But you actually have to start writing in order to improve on that. But it is a skill that can easily be improved. All right, let's go. Now, what do you need to sell a ton of books? So ever since I wrote a book, everyone's kind of asking me, what do you do to kind of get your books off of the shelf? You have tons of authors out there that have written books, but nobody's buying them. So here are some things you're going to need to do to sell a ton of books. Now, the first thing is you're going to have a budget. Oftentimes when I work with a lot of my clients and they have either attempted to write a book before and they hadn't finished it, they never set a budget. And this is important because there's the writing aspect of publishing a book and then there's the production aspect. So you kind of have to set up a budget to kind of understand how much you'll need or how much you need to raise in order to kind of go forward with this project. And we'll talk about all of these in detail a little bit later. So you also need a plan. Of course, you wouldn't just go into a business, where you shouldn't just go into a business without a plan. And even if you don't have something so formal as a business plan, you may have some goals and some milestones that you want to complete. And that is loosely a plan. So you have to have some form of a plan if you plan on selling a ton of books. Now you have to have a defined niche. You need to know who your audience is and who's going to be buying your books. Of course, you need a website or a blog. You need a place to publish. And of course, you have to have promotions and marketing, because what's the point of writing a book if no one knows about it? So we're going to go in detail of these topics. So cover design. When it comes to budget, cover design is one of those things that I know you're looking $100 to $1,400. Like what? It can be that thing that will vary in regards to your price. Like of the book production process, your cover design and probably your printing may be either the most expensive or at least the ones you got to spend a lot of time on. Now, people say you shouldn't judge a book by a cover, but that's exactly what people do. Now, you have some individuals out there that have been highly successful with a really ugly book cover, okay? So there are those anomalies, but in most cases, people want something pleasing to the eye, and you have to take the time to get a really good book cover, okay? Now, elance.com and guru.com are amazing websites that I've used in the past to kind of go through the book production process. Now, in the cover design, This is actually the cover of my first book. And I actually paid a lot of money for it, to be honest with you. I paid a lot of money for a couple reasons. One, I knew this book, I wanted the book to be in bookstores. And if you want your book to be in bookstores, you got to realize that bookstores pay a lot of money for cover design. They basically do studies to see what colors attract readers, and how the spine should look, like all of that stuff, okay? So your book would have to compete with other professional big publishing house books, okay? And I knew that, so I wanted to go to a graphic design artist that had experience working with large publishing companies. So, of course, he wasn't cheap. So I had to pay for that. Now, you don't have to go through all that process, okay? Particularly if you're going to just do an ebook, you don't have to pay $1,400 for a cover, okay? So I hope that makes sense. I know I gave you like a really weird range between $100 to $1,400, but if you go to Elance or Guru.com, you can easily find a graphic design artist between the areas of $100 to maybe $400 or $500. But if you do want your book on bookstores, you want to make sure that you're working with a graphic design artist that is used to working with large publishing companies, or at least has used the printer or the type of printer that you're going to use, okay? So that's important. And now that we're talking about cover design, let me just let you know, if you plan on using a POD company, I'm talking about your Ex Libris, your Lulus, a lot of those other companies, you want to make sure that when you're going through the process, if you have them design your cover, that you own your cover files. Because if the customer service gets crazy and all of a sudden you want to leave, a lot of times they own your cover, not you. And when you're trying to leave, now you have to pay a fee for them to release the file. So I hope that made sense. So let's go ahead and get started. So next, this is actually the cover of my second book. This book was You Made It Mom Entrepreneur Edition. And with this book, I was able to meet some really dynamic, amazing women. Some millionaires, some not millionaires, but they were all moms. They were mom entrepreneurs, and they started their business from the ground up, and they were very, very successful. And one of my all-time favorite people is Paula Deen. I was able to interview Paula Deen and Barbara Corcoran and a bunch of just really amazing women. And again, this is because I was writing a book. If I would have called them up randomly and say, hey, I'm a fan, can you just talk on the phone with me for a bit? It would have looked weird and very stalkerish. But because the point was to write a book, I was able to reach out to these amazing women because they were all excited about educating other mom entrepreneurs and letting them know the do's and don'ts. So that was my second book. And again, this is a book that really kind of changed my life. And so whatever it is you want to do, writing can definitely open some doors for you. And I want to show you, I hope I'm doing a great job showing you how writing can open such doors. All right. Back to the budget. Now, typesetting and formatting. This is basically the inside of the book, the meat and guts, where your story is going to go. And that's basically called typesetting. When you think about your paragraphs and your justification and all that type of fancy stuff that's going inside, there's going to be a typesetter that's going to do that for you. You could attempt to do it yourself, but I don't think you should. So again, you can go to elance.com or guru.com to find some amazing people to do that. That can cost you anywhere from $200 to $400. Again, when you're looking over people's portfolio, you want to see some of their work that they've used before or they've done before. If it's really, really good, you're going to pay on the higher end. If they haven't done that much, then you're going to pay on the lower end. That's just how it works. So just really decide. If you're going to do something like an ebook, you could probably get your typesetting done for much, much cheaper than this. So that's typesetting. Next is editing. Editing is a big deal, guys. Do not put a book out there that hasn't been edited by at least 2 or 3 eyes, honestly. And editing is that thing that can kind of range in price also. You can find, again, people from Elance and Guru that can range anywhere from $200 to $400. It's hard to give you a number because it depends on how many words in your book and how large your book is, of course. So you just kind of want to search out for that. And Elance and Guru are really great websites for that, okay? So with editing, you're going to need more than 2 or 3 eyes. And honestly, even when you have 2 to 3 eyes, you still may see later that you may have some mistakes because it's a large file. You're looking at it over and over again. Someone else is looking at it over and over again. But you want to have multiple eyes because what one person may have missed, another person will catch. So it's important to not scrimp on editing, okay? The next thing is your ISBN. What is an ISBN? An ISBN is your International Standard Book Number, and that's basically given to you by Bowker. Bowker are the people who are basically the government set aside this organization that gives people their International Standard Book Number, and that's Bowker, okay? And you can just Google them and find out their information, but at the time of this webinar, this is currently their prices. I just got this off of their website. So a single ISBN is basically, ISBNs are your book's social security number. Think of it that way. So every book has to have its own number, and this is how it's tracked, and this is how they learn and know all the great stats and stuff about your book, okay? And so a single ISBN, if you're just writing one book, is going to be $125. If you do 10, which is a block, you pay $250. And I put $300 there because I really, if you're going to write one book, that's cool. You may want to pay $125, but it's a steal if you go ahead and get your 10 ISBNs, because even if you want to do a new version or an ebook or what have you, you need a separate ISBN for each format of your book. So just consider that, okay? And more importantly, if you're working with a POD company and they are the ones that supply the ISBN, then they are going to be the publisher on record, not you. And that's important. You have to decide if that matters. So when they're asking who your publishing company is, they're not going to say you or your company. They're saying, Lulu or Ex Libris, or I can't even think of some of the other POD companies right now. But that's going to be the company on record for your publisher. So at times they'll charge you additional fee if you want to use your own ISBN, okay? So printing, like the cover design, it's going to be one of the most expensive costs because you have to get the book printed to put it in your reader's hands. Now, of course, if you're e-publishing, that's a whole different situation. But if you are printing, that is going to be a bulk of where your cost goes to. But the great thing, if you're doing a print-on-demand format, that, once the person buys it, they actually paid for the printing cost. So it's not so much stress. And I get the question a lot. People ask me printing versus ebooks. And I think, honestly, you should do both. And the reason why I say that, if you want to go in traditional media and you want to attend book signings or do a lot of the marketing that's required in order for you to sell a lot of books, you need a physical book. You go on the media and you say, oh, I had this book, go here. You just lost customers. They want to see the physical book. You want that on the camera shot. You want all of that. When you speak, you want to have your physical book. If you're sending your customers to, they've been amazed by you speaking and now they have to run, to their computer to actually get your book, you may lose some customers. Now, granted, we all have smartphones and that type of thing, so now people can actually purchase or download your ebook while they're in the audience. So, honestly, again, I would say do both. We are transitioning to a more e-publishing world, but we haven't 100% gotten there yet. So, don't miss out on customers just because you have your book in one format. That's my opinion, but of course, it's your book. You could do whatever makes you happy. All right, a plan. How long will it take you to complete your book? What will be your writing schedule? So you have to figure this out, okay? Because if you don't prioritize this, it will never happen. And you know what I'm talking about because some of you on this webinar have a half book sitting there on your computer right now, okay? So if you do not create a schedule and plan it, okay? If you're saying a book is going to take you 8 months, and I get this question a lot. People say, Cinnamon, how long will me writing a book take? I don't know. It depends on you. It depends on what kind of book you're writing, how many pages. Like, I have no clue. It depends on you. Now, I'll tell you this, though. If, let's say, Oprah called you and said, okay, I heard, her staff rather, because Oprah don't make her own calls. But if Oprah's staff called you and said, listen, we know that you're an expert in this field. We heard you have a book coming out, and your book isn't finished yet. We heard you have a book coming out. Could you come on the show in 2 weeks? How about I promise you that you will find a way to get that book done in 2 weeks? So let's be real. If it's something that you really want to do, you'll just go ahead and get it done. And so that's why you have to really determine, what you're going to do to get this book completed. Because if you don't, you would be another wannabe, should be, could have been writer or author. And you don't want to be that person, okay? So you want to determine how long will it take for you to complete your book and what will your writing schedule be. All right, next. Where will you find time in your schedule to write? This is important. Now, we talked about scheduling, and everyone's like, oh, I don't have time. I have so much to do. Hey, listen, that's life, okay? And the difference between successful people and people who are not successful is that successful people took the time to do what was important, okay? So if writing a book is important to you, you're just going to have to schedule it, and you're going to have to find the time. So if you're watching more TV, then take an hour out of your week and write, okay? Or if you could take an hour each day out of watching TV and write. If you want to write during your lunch break, if you want to speak into a tape recorder over your commute from and to work, to and from work, yeah, then that's what you have to do. But you have to find time in your schedule. And I can't even hear the excuse that you just don't have time, because you are not the president, okay, or anyone else that has it that severe that you just don't have time, okay? It just matters on what you find important and how to get it done. And for my ladies out there, when you're saying, listen, I have 3 kids and I have a job, I have a career, I have a husband, I get it. But you have to open up to your family and let them know that this is something that you want to do. And just like anything else, for those of you who have, higher education, maybe you went to, you got your bachelor's degree, or you went to graduate school, or you got your PhD. And then remember, like when you're in that program and now you have all this time, you're like, what did I used to do with all this time? It just kind of happens. That's how life works. So just make it happen and schedule it. Now, this is the point. We watch less TV today. Speak your book into a tape recorder. So those are, just the points that I have about that. All right. Now, plan. What month will your book be done? And are there any traditional holidays or events you can tie your book into? This is an important point when it comes to media attention and when it comes to kind of advertising your book. Because when you approach traditional media, no one cares that you wrote a book, really. No one's like, oh my gosh, I wrote this book, please have me on. No, you have to be able to pitch yourself to the media. So, for example, if your book can be done around Valentine's Day and you wrote a relationship book, of course, news and other forms of media are looking for stuff on love and Valentine's and, all this great stuff to fit in with the holiday. So does your book have any meaning in that? If you're writing about something relating to women, then you can consider Women's History Month, which is March. So it just really depends. If your book is a how-to guide, and just think about some of the holidays or commemorable months. This month, the month of October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So think about those months and commemorative holidays and that type of thing that you can tie your book into, because when it comes time to pitch your book to traditional media, pitching it and tying it in with those holidays or those events can be a really, really big deal. All right, plan. How will you hold yourself accountable? This is so important, guys, because again, we talked about people who say they want to write a book and they still haven't done it, and what it is that just makes people not do it. Here's the thing. Because if you don't write this book, you're not going to drop dead tomorrow. You're not going to get sick. Your world's not going to change dramatically. But if you write the book, your world can change dramatically. So because it's for yourself, we often don't do things when it comes to us and taking care of ourselves. But if someone else needs something, we deal with it. We take care of it, okay? So you have to figure out how you're going to hold yourself accountable. And think about when it comes to your job. Your job is something, of course, that you go to and you use it to pay bills and take care of yourself. And if you didn't go, you would get fired. That's the consequence. There's no major consequence if you don't write your book. You know it, because many of you that I'm looking at on this webinar, I see, you've talked to me often about writing your book, but you still haven't quite done it yet. So what are you going to do to hold yourself accountable? Oftentimes, people, even a lot of my clients, they hire me so that I can hold them accountable and that they have to turn in their chapters. And then, I basically stay on them so that they complete this actual book. And it's similar to, like, Let's say a personal trainer. Oftentimes, you can probably do the exercise yourself, but you don't. And then you pay a personal trainer and you show up at the time that you've paid this person to be there and work with you. It's kind of like the similar process. You could absolutely write yourself, but sometimes people need that extra boost. Whatever it is that you need, figure out what that is to hold you accountable. Do you have a highly disciplined friend that you can check with, periodically to make sure you get this book done? Your spouse, your partner, whatever it is. Find out how you will hold yourself accountable and stick to it. All right, a defined niche. And here's an important thing. Before you build an audience, you have to know who you want to attend your event. If you're planning a wedding, you do a guest list. If you're doing graduation, any of these important events that you have in your life, you plan who's going to show up. And if you're writing a book, you have to define who are the people who would really like to read my book. And you want to do this for a variety of reasons. When you're writing, you have to make sure that you write in the language of your audience, okay? So let's say you're an accountant and you want to write a book geared toward the everyday entrepreneur, who, by the way, has not taken accounting classes, okay? So you can't write a book that's so techie and accountant speak that the audience in which you wrote for, the everyday entrepreneur, is not going to understand it or not going to like it or not going to enjoy it. And therefore, you lose book sales because the audience in which you wrote this book for doesn't like the way you wrote it. So before you even complete your book, you have to make sure that you wrote the book geared and written in a way for your audience, okay? Secondly, in regards to promotion and marketing, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you actually have to make sure that you're marketing in those places where your audience is. Doing a lot of shotgun marketing with books is not going to work if you want to sell a ton. If you want to have your books, be Christmas presents for your family and friends, then that's a different story. But if you want your books to get out to a lot of people, you actually have to think about what is your defined niche, who is your audience, and where are they, okay? So you're going to need a website or a blog. And WordPress is an awesome, I'm biased. I use WordPress, I think, in every website I have. It's just user-friendly. It's easy. I don't have to learn a whole bunch of code. I can update it, or my assistant can update it really quickly, and I just like it. So that's WordPress, but you don't have to use WordPress. And there's a new one may not be so new now, but Squarespace is also a similar, kind of situation. You can create a website or a blog. And it's a lot of, drag and move. It's, it's kind of easy to use. So you can do Squarespace. Squarespace is going to be a little bit more expensive, but it just depends on how involved you want to be with this website process. And if you're just starting off, you could, check it out. Both of them, WordPress.com and Squarespace.com. If you already have a hosting company, then WordPress probably is already with your hosting company for free, so you're not even paying any additional fee. Squarespace, not necessarily the case. Now, you can use whatever you want. There's Google blogs out there. There's tons of blog platforms out there. I use WordPress because there's so many developers and other things and plugins and all this other stuff that people have created for WordPress that just makes it so much easier. But you can, again, use whichever blog site that you use. And you want to use your website and your blog in particular, even before your book comes out. You want to start to build the audience so that when your book comes out, you'll already have these people that you've been talking to or marketing to over the course of the months of you writing the book. So you're not like you're starting on a clean slate. So start to build the buzz and give information and let people know on your blog and on your website before the book is even out. Okay, now you have to have a place to publish. Now, I talked briefly about print on demand, and basically the premise of that is that a book is not printed until someone orders it, okay? So it definitely takes away the whole having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on printing and just have them sitting in your garage, okay? So print on demand is great. It also easily transitions into online purchasing from Amazon.com or any of the other online retailers. There are a lot of print on demand publishing companies out there. And you definitely want to do your due diligence to find out which one is going to be best suited for you, because they all have their pluses and their minuses. Now, print on demand, because it's printed by like one unit at a time, it's going to be more expensive per unit than it would be if you were just to buy, a couple thousand. So you have to kind of remember that when it comes to, if you want your book in bookstores or that type of thing, because if you want your book in bookstores, print on demand may not be the best option if you want them on bookstore shelves, because the unit cost is so expensive. And the typical bookstore wants at least a 55% discount on your book before they would even stock it in their bookstore. Now, if you're on print on demand, someone can order it from the bookstore, but it won't necessarily be stocked on the shelves. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And if you get a chance, go to my YouTube channel, and I have a whole bunch of videos of talking about why bookstores may not like POD books and how you can kind of change that. So that's print on demand. Now, you can e-publish with Amazon, yes, trusty Amazon, or barnesandnoble.com. Now, Amazon has a ton of books on their e-publishing, which you could totally do. Barnes and Noble, I really don't know the statistics that people are just buying a whole bunch of ebooks on Barnes & Noble. I actually have no idea, but you could e-publish on both of those for free. You can upload your book and publish it for free, and then, of course, they take their commissions when people buy. So if you just want to start off and get your feet wet, I really would recommend e-publishing, because if your budget is limited, e-publishing is a great way to go. And what you could do is, once you get your sales from e-publishing, you can kind of use that money to go ahead and go through the process of getting a print book, so you can kind of venture out into other like traditional media senses. So now, people ask me what route did I choose and which direction did I go. I actually went with Lightning Source. Lightning Source is basically the source that most POD publishing companies get their books printed from another company, and that company is typically Lightning Source. So if you cut out the middleman and just go to Lightning Source directly, you save a ton of more money than if you would have gone to those other companies. Now, here's the caveat. If you're working with Lightning Source, you actually have to be a company. Lightning Source does not work with individuals, because they don't have time to sit here and hold your hand and let you know what you have to do, okay? So you have to be a publishing company or corporation if you're using Lightning Source. If that kind of freaks you out and you're like, listen, I'm not ready for all that, in my lines of research so far, booklocker.com offers very, very competitive rates, and they don't try to sell you a whole bunch of services that you just do not need. So for right now, at the time of this webinar, BookLocker is a good way to go as well, particularly if you don't want to create another company and that type of thing. Lightning Source, if you plan on writing more than one book, and if you plan on establishing a publishing company and all that great stuff, Lightning Source is an awesome, awesome way to go. They also can easily transition your print-on-demand book to offset printing. And that seamless transition was highly important for me when I needed to start to take care of bookstore sales. So like I said, if you're doing bookstore sales, print-on-demand, the numbers just don't make sense. So you need to be able to easily transition into offset printing, where you can get a book printed for like $1 or $2. All right, you guys still with me? Okay, promotions and marketing. So we're going to go through these. It's a lot of stuff for promotion and marketing. And if you guys attended my webinars before, you know I spend an hour or two just on promotion and marketing. So let's go over a couple things. The press release. Press release are very important. Many people write a book and they don't write a press release. You should totally write a press release, because honestly, this is still how traditional media gets their information. So that is how you can get a lot of calls from your, radio stations, your newspapers, your radio, all that thing. So do not scrimp on the press release. Craigslist. Did anyone ever know that you could totally advertise your books on Craigslist? Craigslist is a free, for those of you who have been under a rock, Craigslist is a free online classified ads and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it's basically, is it just classified ads? I think it is. But at any rate, they have niche-specific categories, which is what you need, because your book, of course, we talked about earlier, it's in a defined niche. So you can advertise your book on Craigslist for free. Craigslist is a great way to get more people to your website to order your book. I love Craigslist. I use it all the time in my marketing. Blogs, of course, you're going to go to other people blogs that control your niche, or their readers tend to be your niche, and you're going to either be interviewed. That works, but when you're interviewed by somebody's blog, I feel that it works less than if you go to their blog and teach them something. So if your audience, let's say you're, a person who's in the health field, you want to teach their audience something as it relates to health so that you could provide benefit so that they say, oh, I just learned something from this person. Let me go check out some of their other stuff. And that's kind of how the whole blog things do. Virtual book signings. Virtual book signings are so amazing. I love them. And you can do these in a variety of ways. You can go to a ton of blogs and do a virtual book signing that way. What I like even better than that is using live streaming. So you can basically do a video that's streaming live from wherever you are, and people are basically chatting and conversing with you. They're telling you what they want signed on the book. This really works for physical books too. So they're telling you how they want you to sign the book. They're talking about the best parts of the book, and you're just basically communicating with your customers on the web with a webcam. It's the best. I love, love, love virtual book signings. Not to mention, there's no cost, okay? You're not paying for a hotel. You're not doing a whole bunch of stuff. You're not getting in airports when it's freezing outside. You can be in Barcelona and do a virtual book signing and have everyone from all over the world kind of chime in. All right, I'll leave that alone because I love virtual book signings, but definitely put that in your promotions and marketing. YouTube. This webinar, of course, is live, but guess where it's going as soon as the recording is processed? It's going on YouTube. And YouTube is awesome. I love it. And it's a free way to market. Like most of the stuff I'm telling you about, matter of fact, I think all the stuff that I'm about to list right here is free. So if you don't do free stuff and you're marketing and then your books aren't selling and then you're wondering why, then that's what you get, because there's so many free options to market now that to not employ them is just foolish. So YouTube is just that great way that you can meet people that you just would never have the ability of meeting on your own. It's impossible. Okay, so you can meet people in different countries, in different cities and states, and this just morphs your expertise and your knowledge into a platform that, again, you just couldn't do in your local town or city. So definitely do YouTube. If those are people who are freaking out saying, listen, I really don't want to be on camera. Listen, I get it. I'm not on camera right now. I'm doing a presentation, okay? So you don't have to be on camera. Your face doesn't have to be there. You can totally teach people, and then they learn stuff, and then they love you, okay? All right, that's YouTube. Internet radio. Internet radio is also an awesome way to advertise. You can check blogtalkradio.com. And there's some other ones, and I can't quite think of them right now. Just Google internet radio stations, find a host that meets your niche, and teach their audience something. Once again, this is free. Again, it allows you to meet people that you would not have the ability of meeting because of this viral, virtual, social media type of stuff. More importantly, Facebook. You want to create a Facebook fan page for your book specifically, not for you, the individual. I encourage a lot of people to separate you from your business, because sometimes you don't want your clients to know you're on vacation or that you just ate all this stuff for breakfast. That's none of their business, okay? So create a Facebook page specifically for your book or you as an author. So these are, how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's 7 ways as to how you can do promotion marketing, and all these are free. These are awesome ways to let people know about your book. So what you have to do is actually employ it, okay? So now, here are some ways that an author can actually get wealthy, okay? And these are an author's accessories to wealth. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to sell hundreds and thousands of books and that's how I'm going to get wealthy. Well, I want to have you expand your brain for a bit, because even with my first book, it took a minute for sales to start kind of reaching and getting to where I wanted them to be. Because initially, friends and families will buy your books, but then you have to reach out to those strangers and get them to know about the book. So, of course, book sales are important, but here's the author's accessories to wealth. Now, there's an advance. If you sign with a traditional publishing company, they typically give you an advance. Now, of course, we're talking about how to self-publish, so the advance may not look that way. But, I have a class that I talk about how to get paid publishing, and basically it shows you how to fundraise and how to kind of incorporate certain sponsorship and that type of thing before your book project. And that is basically what I tell self-published authors they could use for their advance. So this is, of course, to give them income so they can continue writing this book. And two, it also offsets the cost to produce a self-published book. So the author's accessory, one of the author's accessories to wealth is an advance. Now, the passive income, of course, it told you when you write a book once, you continue to make money off of it, okay? You wrote this book once and people continue to buy this one book. So the time and energy that you put in it, it's multiplied, okay? And again, as I stated earlier, it's passive income, so it's taxed differently. Now, bulk sales. This is an awesome way to sell a book. Now, you don't even have to do books one-on-one. You can offer a wholesale price to, let's say, a corporation or a nonprofit group or organization because you are selling so many books. So that's a great way, guys, to get rid of thousands and thousands of books. So let's say you're in a situation where you, again, we're talking about the health situation, and there's a nonprofit out there that's geared toward, educating people on health or educating children on health. The book that you wrote, you can sell that to the nonprofit. And for those who think that nonprofits don't buy anything, they absolutely do. And this is what they can give to a lot of the people that they actually serve, okay? But even the same with corporations. If you have a financial book, a lot of times a bank will sponsor your book so that you can get it out to a lot of organizations or people that need to read this information, okay? So just bulk sales are awesome ways to get book sales, okay? So don't forget about book sales, but that's another way or an accessory to wealth with authors. Now, licensing. In my situation, I have two book series, so other people can write for my series, and I get a portion of that profit. So again, if there's a situation, you can license your idea or your information and allow other people to write for your brand. Now, you can increase your business leads. Books are like marketing pieces that other people pay for. So if you think about it, if you are an accountant, again, because you wrote a book, more people are trying to find out who you are, more information. And so that in turn increases your business because you're looked at as an expert and it helps market you. Because if you were just an accountant and maybe didn't write a book, not that many people may care. But because you wrote a book, now you open the doors to more opportunities. And when you open the door to more opportunities for people to know about you, that of course increases your business leads. It's free publicity, guys. People want you on radio and TV, magazines, blogs when you wrote a book. That's just how it is. I don't know why quite, but it's free publicity. So again, I was on the news. I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years at the time, and no one asked me to be on the news before. So once I wrote a book, now I can kind of put myself in those positions and meet other amazing people. Okay, spin-offs. This is the part that I really, really love and encourage a lot of my clients to incorporate after they wrote the book, because the spin-off parts are the best parts. Many of you are attending a webinar right now, and some of you have attended, webinars that you guys paid for, my coaching that I do, the consulting, all of that stuff. It's just awesome. So if you're an author, you definitely want to consider the spin-off products that you can now employ into your business, because they are great money makers and they help you do this full time. Granted, you could write a book and hope that you sell 1 million copies, but what you should do is just employ some of these other accessories to help kind of establish you. All right, so there we have it, guys. So we're going to do question and answer in a couple seconds. So be sure to type in your questions in the box provided, or you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. So again, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at stilettoseries.com. Would love to have you and see you. Just let me know that you attended the webinar on how to self-publish and how you enjoyed it, and follow back, all that great stuff. If you want to find me on Facebook, if Facebook is your social media of choice, you can find me there at the Stiletto Series on Facebook. So let's take a couple moments. I'll give you guys a couple moments and type in your questions, and I'll be happy to stay on the line and answer your questions.